picture this. You're sitting in this cramped, overly air-conditioned office,
Yep,
right?
I know the exact kind of place you're talking about.
Yeah, and across the desk is this stereotypically slimy car salesman. You know, the kind who keeps patting your shoulder and, like, saying your name just a little too often.
Oh, the
Right,
worst.
and he slides a piece of paper towards you. He's waited until the absolute last possible second to reveal the price.
Of course he has.
So you look down, and the number is so outrageously high your stomach actually drops. And in that exact moment, you are being set up to experience a massive cognitive glitch.
Yeah, you really are.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are shining a massive flashlight into the murky, highly illogical depths of the human mind. And we're using Peter Hollins' really fascinating book, Brain Fart, to do it.
Which is such a great title, by the way.
It really is. It's all about discovering our flawed logic, failures in common sense, and, just irrational behavior in general.
And that car salesman tactic you just mentioned, that is actually a perfect entry point into Holland's work.
Oh, total.
Because the salesman was attempting to induce a momentary lapse in judgment, basically, by deploying the psychological trap called anchoring.
Anchoring.
Yeah, by throwing out an exceedingly high number first, he forces the buyer's brain to just, latch onto it as a baseline.
So everything else seems reasonable in comparison.
Exactly. Every subsequent negotiation happens just underneath that artificially inflated ceiling, which heavily reduces your wiggle room.
And it's funny because the author actually opens the book with that exact story from his childhood. His parents were the ones in the hot seat.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. But the funny thing is, the salesman's trick completely failed on them.
Good for them. How did they get out of it?
Well, his parents came from a culture where, aggressive haggling was practically a daily sport. So they set their own aggressively low anchor, called his bluff on a fake deadline, and just completely ignored the guilt trip.
That's amazing.
They actually kept the price ticker on their windshield for years as a trophy.
Oh, I love that.
Right. But I think the core lesson remains. Our brains have these back doors, and other people are just constantly trying to pick the locks.
They absolutely are.
Because we walk around firmly believing we're these, highly logical, coldly calculating decision makers. But the actual mechanics of our minds tell a very, very different story.
They do. And we have to establish right out of the gate that falling for these cognitive traps, it doesn't mean a person is unintelligent.
Right. That's a huge point.
The fundamental premise here is actually evolutionary. Like, for millions of years, the human brain was meticulously engineered to keep you alive in a really dangerous wilderness.
Where you had to act fast.
Exactly. That meant prioritizing lightning-fast decisions over perfectly accurate ones. The brain actively cuts corners to save energy and reaction time.
Because if you sit around doing the math, you get eaten.
Precisely. Fast forward to today, and we are navigating an incredibly complex, abstract, modern world using that exact same prehistoric hardware.
Right. The hardware hasn't updated.
Right. And the resulting mismatch produces these bizarre, sometimes hilarious, and often dangerous glitches that Hollins refers to as, brain farts.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we talked about the sleazy salesman. But what happens when that manipulative pressure comes from, an entire crowd of people?
Oh, group dynamics completely short-circuit us.
Yeah, the first major glitch we run into is this illusion of independence. We all love to view ourselves as these, free-thinking trailblazers.
Everyone thinks they're the exception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the data on social conformity is just staggering. The book highlights the famous Asch conformity experiment from the 1950s.
Oh, that's a classic one.
Yeah, and most of you listening probably know the basic setup. A participant is asked to look at two cards with vertical lines and just identify which ones match in length.
It's a visual test so obvious a toddler could pass it.
Literally. But the catch is that the real participant is put in a room full of actors who deliberately start giving the obviously wrong answer.
Right, just to see what the one real person does.
Yeah. And over 1/3 of the actual participants ended up conforming to the incorrect group consensus just to avoid looking peculiar.
Which is wild. But what's fascinating here is the mechanism behind that conformity.
Right. Why do we do it?
Well, the author uses a brilliantly simple analogy. Imagine you start a new job, right? There is absolutely no official dress code.
Okay.
But on your first day, you notice literally everyone in the office is wearing a magenta shirt.
Oh, I'd feel so out of place.
Exactly. You are almost certainly going to go out and buy a magenta shirt for tomorrow.
Yeah, I would, but it feels like a loss of free will. Although, if we look at it through that evolutionary lens we just talked about, isn't conforming actually a highly calculated survival mechanism?
How you mean?
Like, deep down, the primitive brain calculates that getting kicked out of the tribe means starving on the savannah.
That is spot on. Researchers actually split this mechanism into two distinct psychological pathways.
Okay, what are they?
So what you're describing with the magenta shirt is called normative influence. You conform because you just want to be liked, accepted, and protected by the group.
Which makes sense.
It does. But the Ashline experiment revealed something far more insidious, which is informational influence.
Informational influence, meaning what exactly?
That occurs when the group pressure actually causes you to doubt your own optic nerve.
Oh, wow. So you literally don't trust your own eyes.
Right. The internal monologue shifts from, I'll just say what they say to fit in, to, well, if 5 people see the lines differently, my vision must be flawed.
Like, the group must know something I don't.
Exactly. The collective must possess better data than I do. Your brain overrides its own sensory input to align with the herd.
And I guess that desire to defer to the group, or specifically to a perceived leader, it really explains the incredibly dark turns we see in other famous psychology studies.
No, absolutely. It gets dark fast.
Yeah, like Stanley Milgram's 1963 shock experiments. 62% of people administered a lethal 450-volt electric shock to an unseen actor, simply because a man in a white lab coat told them to.
Right, the authority figure.
Or Philip Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment. Normal college students turned into sadistic guards in a matter of days.
And what's rarely discussed about those extreme examples is the actual physiological relief the brain experiences when it submits.
Wait, relief? From shocking someone?
Well, think about it. In the Milgram experiment, there were no actual threats or physical coercion from the researcher. The lab coat was just an arbitrary symbol of authority.
Right.
But moral decision-making consumes a massive amount of cognitive energy. It's exhausting.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah, so when the authority figure says the experiment requires that you continue, the participant's brain realizes it can completely offload that heavy burden of responsibility onto someone else.
Wow. So it's an energy-saving shortcut that just happens to result in horrific behavior.
Exactly. The artificial roles just consume the individual.
That's terrifying. So if social settings and power dynamics short-circuit our logic so easily, you'd think, well, isolating ourselves would fix the problem, right?
I would think so.
But no. When we're alone, facing an unpredictable, chaotic world, the brain panics in a completely different way. It invents control where absolutely none exists.
Yes, and this is driven by what's called the uncertainty hypothesis.
Okay, what is that?
Basically, when humans lack certainty, we experience profound psychological distress. Our neurochemistry actually punishes us for not knowing what happens next.
Like actual physical stress.
Yes. So to alleviate that stress, the brain aggressively manufactures cause and effect patterns out of thin air.
Just makes them up.
Completely. B.F. Skinner demonstrated this beautifully back in 1948 using pigeons.
Wait, pigeons?
Yeah, he placed them in boxes and dropped food pellets at completely random intervals. But the pigeons didn't perceive it as random.
What did they do?
They started repeating whatever arbitrary movement they happened to be doing right before a pellet dropped.
Like a little dance.
Exactly. They constructed a false narrative that their little dance controlled the food supply.
That is so funny. But humans do the exact same thing, don't we? Through this phenomenon called apophenia.
Yes, apophenia.
Which is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections in completely unrelated data. And the book points out that in the ancient jungle, apophenia was a superpower.
Oh, it kept us alive.
Right, because if you saw a pattern of rustling leaves and rising dust, your brain connected the dots, screamed, "Jaguar!" and you ran.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. A false alarm cost you nothing, but missing the pattern cost you your life.
But today...
Today there are no jaguars. So apophenia just makes us see a face and a burnt piece of toast.
Right, or it makes us fall for the gambler's fallacy.
Oh, yeah. Like sitting at a roulette table watching the ball land on black 5 times in a row and mathematically convincing ourselves that red is due.
Which makes no sense. The wheel has no memory.
None at all. But the brain just demands a pattern.
And that demand for order escalates dramatically into magical thinking during times of really severe, life-threatening stress.
Really? Like when?
Well, Hollins highlights research conducted in Israel during periods of frequent, unpredictable missile attacks.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
It is. And they found that the citizens who exhibited the highest levels of magical thinking, like those who believed in protective charms, superstitions, supernatural intervention, they actually functioned much better psychologically than those who relied on cold logic.
That is wild. It kind of reminds me of furiously mashing the button at a crosswalk.
Oh, we all do that.
Right. Logically, we know pressing it 10 times doesn't change the traffic light a single second faster.
Not at all.
But standing there doing nothing makes the brain feel helpless. Mashing the button provides this physical illusion that we're in the driver's seat.
It gives you agency.
Yeah. So if this illusion of control measurably lowers our stress and provides hope during something as horrific as a missile strike, shouldn't we consider magical thinking a feature of the brain rather than a bug?
Oh, absolutely. Cognitive psychologists heavily support that view.
Really?
Yeah, they look at it by examining our two primary cognitive thinking styles, the intuitive and the reflective.
Okay.
So imagine you're walking past a dimly lit graveyard at midnight.
Creepy.
Very. And a figure covered in dirt comes staggering toward you out of the shadows. Your intuitive system fires up instantly and jumps straight to magical thinking. Zombie.
Because why not?
Right. It provides a hyper-fast, highly actionable narrative to keep you safe. Run away from the zombie.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then a few seconds later, your reflective system boots up, processes the data more slowly, suppresses the panic, and deduces it's just a person who tripped in the mud.
Oh, I see.
The brain generates the magical thought first because constructing a narrative of control, even a supernatural one, is the psyche's first line of defense against chaos.
Okay, so we defer to the herd, and we invent zombies and Lucky Charms just to feel safe.
Basically, yeah.
But what about the data we store internally? Like, what about our concrete, lived memories? Because we tend to view memory like a video camera, just recording exactly what happened.
Oh, man. That might be the most dangerous illusion of all.
You think?
We are the ultimate unreliable narrators of our own lives. Memory is not a recording at all, it's a reconstruction.
A reconstruction?
Yeah, every single time you pull a memory up, you have to actively rebuild it, which leaves it highly vulnerable to contamination.
The section in the book on flashbulb memories really drives this home for me.
Oh, that's a great example.
Yeah, these are those high emotion memories, like knowing exactly where you were and what you were doing when you heard about 9/11.
Right, they feel burned in.
They feel as vivid and permanent as a photograph. Yet longitudinal studies show that over time, these memories degrade and warp just as much as everyday memories do.
Even though our confidence in them remains at 100%.
Exactly. And it gets even more unsettling when you look at false memories.
Oh, this is where it gets crazy.
Right. Researchers Elizabeth Loftus and Jacqueline Cohn proved you could actually implant entirely fabricated childhood traumas into a healthy person's mind.
And the mechanism they used was astonishingly simple.
How did they do it?
They gave participants a mix of real stories from their childhood provided by family members, and then they inserted one completely fake narrative about getting lost in a shopping mall as a young child.
Just snuck it in there.
Yeah. And by simply instructing the participants to journal about these events over a few days, the brain's imagination circuits physically overwrote the memory circuits.
That is terrifying.
It is.
Yeah.
The subjects didn't just passively believe the fake mall memory was real. They actively generated new sensory details about the imaginary strangers who helped them.
Wow. And it doesn't even require days of journaling to corrupt the data.
No, not at all.
Loftus and Palmer ran this famous car crash study that proves the frightening power of just a single word.
Yes, the verb study.
Yeah, they showed participants a video of two cars colliding. And when they asked one group, how fast are the cars going when they smashed into each other? The brain used that violent verb as an anchor.
Right, smashed.
And it reconstructed a faster memory. The average guess was 40.8 miles per hour.
But then they changed the word.
Exactly. When they asked another group how fast they were going when they bumped into each other, the visual memory physically altered itself to match the gentler word. The speed estimate dropped to 38.1 miles per hour.
Which really demonstrates how terrifyingly porous human recall is.
It really does.
But, our cognitive lapses aren't always about outside contamination. Sometimes the brain simply unplugs itself.
Yes, the physiological brain fart. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It happens to all of us.
You know the feeling. You're driving down a long stretch of highway, totally on autopilot, and suddenly you snap back to reality and realize you missed your exit 3 miles ago.
Oh, yeah. Done that plenty of times.
Neuroscientists have actually mapped what is happening here. When you perform a highly monotonous, predictable task, the brain shifts into what is known as the default mode network.
Right.
And about 30 seconds before you lose your train of thought, the blood flow to the attention centers of your brain measurably decreases.
Because the brain operates on predictive processing. If the highway looks exactly the same mile after mile, the brain assumes it knows what's coming next.
So it just zones out.
Right. It aggressively shuts down the active processing centers to conserve calories.
It's essentially like a cheap
A
landlord.
cheap landlord. I like that.
Yeah, think about it. The brain makes up barely 2% of our total body weight, but it demands roughly 20% of our daily energy.
It's an energy cog.
So when you're driving down that boring road, the landlord looks at the utility bill, realizes nothing new is happening outside, and literally shuts off the electricity to the prefrontal cortex to save a few bucks.
That is a brilliant analogy.
And that is the exact split second you miss your exit or, walk into the kitchen and completely forget why you went in there.
The doorway effect.
Exactly.
Oh.
Or you experience tip of the tongue syndrome where you're desperately trying to recall a word like spelunking, but the filing cabinet is just sitting there in the dark.
The power's out. But, this raises an important question.
Oh.
When you combine all these factors, the extreme porosity of memory, the suggestibility to single words, the brain shutting down attention centers, it raises a massive societal issue.
I think I know where you're going with this. The legal system.
Exactly. How can we continue to rely so heavily on eyewitness testimony in the legal system?
Pretty so flawed.
Innocent people routinely go to prison because a jury implicitly trusts an eyewitness who is unknowingly experiencing a reconstructed memory or just a massive cognitive glitch.
And a legal system is far from the only institution exploiting these biological loopholes.
Oh, definitely not.
Right, because if our internal filing system is this unreliable and our active attention powers down on autopilot, it leaves the door wide open for savvy marketers and salespeople to hijack the steering wheel.
Advertisers weaponize our cognitive shortcuts daily. We touched on anchoring with the car salesman, but its application is universal.
Oh, it's everywhere.
The book cites this brilliant UN study. Researchers had participants spin a roulette wheel that was rigged to land on either 10 or 65.
Okay.
They then asked the participants to guess the percentage of African countries in the United Nations.
And let me guess, the wheel influenced them.
Oh, massively. The people who spun a 10 guessed around 25%. The people who spun the 65 guessed around 45%.
That is insane.
Right. The completely random, mathematically irrelevant spin of a wheel anchored their perception of geopolitical reality.
Wow. And it's the exact same math behind restaurant menus.
Oh, decoy pricing.
Yes. They deliberately place a $50 duck entree right at the top. And the chef doesn't actually expect you to buy the duck. It's decoy pricing. It forces your brain to anchor to $50. So when your eyes scan down to the $30 chicken dish,
Yeah.
your brain processes it as a perfectly reasonable bargain instead of an overpriced piece of poultry.
It's so manipulative. Advertisers also bypass our conscious filters entirely using subtle priming.
Like with music.
Exactly. There was a classic study that monitored the background music in a grocery store wine aisle.
I remember reading about this.
Yeah, when they played accordion-heavy French music, sales of French wine spiked. When they switched to a German brass band, German wine outsold the rest.
And the shoppers had no idea.
None. They had no conscious awareness that the audio was making their purchasing decisions for them.
That's crazy. But when subtle priming fails, marketers pivot to an even more powerful evolutionary trigger, which is fear.
Oh, fear sells like nothing else.
Right. Like in the 1920s, bad breath wasn't considered a medical condition. It was just a fact of life.
Sure.
But Listerine needed to expand its market, so they literally invented the epidemic of halitosis.
They coined the term, didn't they?
They pretty much popularized it. They ran these relentless ad campaigns featuring beautiful, depressed women who were destined to die as lonely spinsters simply because of their breath.
That is so dark.
Right. They didn't sell mouthwash. They manufactured a deep-seated fear of social exile and then conveniently sold the cure.
And today, they use gamification to achieve the same bypass.
Oh, like point systems and rewards.
Exactly. Think about the McDonald's Monopoly promotion.
Oh, I used to love that.
We all did. But parting with hard-earned cash actually registers in the brain's pain centers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but by forcing you to focus on collecting a little boardwalk sticker, the brain's reward center floods with dopamine. That completely overrides the psychological pain of spending money on fast food.
Wow. Mobile games do that too, right?
Oh, masterfully. Candy Crush makes the early levels insanely easy to build a false sense of mastery and confidence.
You feel like a genius.
Exactly. Then, right when the algorithmic difficulty spikes and you feel deeply invested, they charge you money for boosts to bypass the frustration that they engineered.
It's so sinister.
Another pervasive bypass is the halo effect.
Oh, I've heard of this.
It's the cognitive bias where we take one highly positive trait about a person and automatically bleed it over into every other aspect of their character.
Okay.
It is the sole reason Michael Jordan was paid millions of dollars to sell underwear.
Okay, but hold on a second. Let me push back here.
Sure, go ahead.
If I am fully aware of the halo effect, and I logically know that being the greatest basketball player in history does not endow Michael Jordan with a PhD in cotton blend engineering,
Right.
shouldn't that logic override the advertisement?
Yeah.
Like, I could see the Matrix. Doesn't that make me immune?
Well, it is a comforting thought, but biology says otherwise.
Really? I'm still doomed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
The rational, analytical part of your brain that understands marketing theory is a relatively new evolutionary operating system.
Right, the new hardware.
It has only been field tested for a couple of 100,000 years, and as we've discussed, it crashes frequently.
Fair enough.
But your emotional lizard brain, that hardware has been exquisitely refined over hundreds of millions of years.
Oh,
When you see Michael Jordan, your lizard brain processes his dominance, excellence, and success in about 0.1 seconds.
that fast.
Yep. And it neurochemically transfers that feeling to the product before your prefrontal cortex even finishes reading the logo. Logic simply cannot outrun instinct.
Wow. Okay, so if we are this easily played, I mean, constantly bowing to group pressure, hallucinating patterns, misremembering our own lives, and getting tricked into buying things we don't need by an underwear-peddling lizard brain.
It's a lot, I know.
How do we look in the mirror every morning? How do we not just collapse from the sheer weight of our own gullibility?
Well, this is where the brain deploys its final and arguably most crucial survival tactic.
Which is...
It aggressively defends the ego.
Yeah.
To function, we literally have to trick ourselves into believing we are smarter than we actually are.
Enter the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Exactly.
A famous 1999 Cornell study found that participants who scored in the bottom 12% of a logic and grammar test consistently rated their own performance as being in the top 62%.
It's wildly disproportionate.
Right. It's often simplified as dumb people think they're smart, but the mechanism is far more tragic.
It really is.
If you lack the expertise to understand a complex subject, you simultaneously lack the metacognitive tools required to recognize your own incompetence. You literally do not possess the mental framework to see how badly you are failing.
And when our failures become too glaring to ignore, the brain spins up psychological defense mechanisms.
Like what?
Rationalization is a primary shield. Think of Aesop's fable of the sour grapes.
The one where the fox can't reach them?
Right. The fox tries repeatedly to jump up and reach a bundle of grapes. When he realizes he physically can't do it, his ego faces a crisis of inadequacy.
So he just changes the story.
To resolve the crisis, he tells himself the grapes were probably sour anyway. And we do this constantly.
We really do. We convince ourselves we never actually wanted the promotion we were passed over for.
Exactly. We use denial to entirely filter out traumatic data, or we use intellectualization to strip the messy emotions out of a painful event so we can analyze it without feeling it.
And I guess the ultimate ego defense happens when our core beliefs violently clash with undeniable reality, creating cognitive dissonance.
Oh, cognitive dissonance is powerful.
The book examines Leon Festinger's 1957 infiltration of a doomsday cult.
Such a wild study.
Yeah, the cult members had given away all their money and severed ties with their families because they believed the world was going to end in a massive flood on a highly specific date.
And when that date came and went and the sun rose normally, you would logically assume the cult members would admit they had been conned.
Right. But the psychological tension of admitting they had destroyed their lives for nothing was literally too painful for the brain to process.
So what do?
Instead, they resolved the cognitive dissonance by doubling down. They claimed that their extreme faithfulness had actually convinced the aliens to spare the planet.
Wow. They spun a humiliating defeat into a messianic victory.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
what does this all mean? It is exactly like having an aggressive PR firm living inside your skull.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. No matter how disastrously the company messes up, the PR firm immediately issues a spin-doctored press release, twisting the failure into a bold new strategy so the CEO, our fragile ego, doesn't have to resign in disgrace.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this constant, elaborate self-deception is actually biologically vital.
Vital. Really?
Yeah. It sounds inherently negative to admit we lie to ourselves constantly. But if we didn't possess these defense mechanisms, if we were forced to consciously process every error, every irrational choice, and every cognitive failing in real time,
That sounds exhausting.
it would be more than exhausting. The psychological burden would lead straight to clinical depression. We need that internal PR firm just to get out of bed in the morning. Hubris, overconfidence, and rationalization are simply the biological taxes we pay for mental well-being.
That is fascinating. So, taking all of this in, I want to bring this right back to you listening right now.
Yeah, let's bring it home.
The next time you walk into a room and completely blank on why you're there, or you buy a slightly too expensive chicken dinner because duck anchored your wallet, or you find yourself stubbornly defending a decision you know deep down was terrible, give yourself some grace.
Absolutely.
You are not unintelligent.
Yeah.
You are simply operating a highly efficient, deeply flawed, wonderfully human biological machine.
We are all just navigating a modern world, using ancient hardware, doing the absolute best we can with the glitches we were given.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought to chew on. If our brains are fundamentally wired to deceive us, to invent patterns out of thin air, to justify our mistakes, and to literally rewrite our own memories, just to protect our egos, is it actually possible for any of us to achieve true self-awareness? Or is that profound feeling of finally understanding ourselves just the ultimate brain fart one last deeply comforting illusion cooked up by the mind to keep us moving forward?
Oh, that's a deep one.
Something to think about the next time you find yourself leaving a price sticker on your windshield.